Hello, hello. Looks like we're going. All right, since we're going here, if you're watching this after the fact, make sure and check the comments for time codes. I wanted to get going early based on last week. Wanted to make sure that it would go okay. So starting early. The stream tends to be pretty long as well, so like 2 hours. So if you want to skip around, check the time codes in the description below. If you're you're on YouTube, so you'll be able to see that like the red bar that goes along the bottom's got all the different sections as well. Otherwise, we'll just hang out here and let people join up, and we'll get started in 4 or 5 minutes because it seems to be working, which is great. Last week it didn't work. Last week it took like 20 minutes to get going, so I wanted to give myself a little head start on the stream today. So we get going usually at 2 p.m. Pacific, so we're a little before that. So we'll sit tight and we can chat in the chat. And I'm pausing my video streams. I just paused it where it was like looked very dorky. DCD's in Discord, so hi David. David's in YouTube too. We had Joel and Deshipu chatting earlier in the YouTube. David asks, Deep Dive doesn't show up in the twitch.tv schedule. I'm not sure how that's set up, so I don't know. Soundorphan says, hey Scott, would you be interested in coming on the Real Python podcast to discuss CircuitPython? Of course. I'm always down to do some podcasts. You can email me, scott@adafruit.com, to arrange that. Thanks, Soundorphan. Hi, Beata. Hello, Doctor. This is going to be a very chill stream. Last week we got down in the depths, and so it's going to be a little less deep this week. Going to be doing some blinky stuff, hopefully. And I just figured out how to test the thing that I was trying to do before lunch that was giving me a lot of trouble. So I might actually do that too. Overhead should be going. Hey, Bruce. Hi, Christian. Hey, thanks to Christian, everybody, for doing the... Lucian just finished it, but didn't have to do too much. Being able to read the error string, the traceback string from a previous run. Just got merged in, and Christian did that, so that's really neat. So thanks to Christian for that. Hey, Gary. Hey, Deshipu. Hey, M4TK. And Swaraj. Is that right? Hey, King or North. Yeah, we're getting people as 2 o'clock rolls around. Hey, Steve. Good morning, Unexpected Maker. I was just using your board. I was having a heck of a time, and then I realized my mistake. So that's good. I was trying to like load all this new stuff on over Serial, and I had TO open in another window, and it was like clobbering. TO was aggressively clobbering the ESP tool serial connection, which was bad. Yeah, it was my mistake. So I just got it loaded. Christian says, glad it made it into 7 even after I let it language. Yeah, we took a really good look at all the 7.0 stuff, and it was really awesome. We got down to 3 open pull requests, which is kind of amazing. Hi, Minnesota Mentat. Am I clipping at all? It looks like I might be clipping a little bit. I'm actually going to turn the fan on too. It is a little breezy, and if I know anything, it just gets warmer. Oh, what made it into 7 is the change that Christian made to now you can set what the next file to run is it. So if you don't like code.py, you can actually set some state that says run something else.py instead. And when you do that, you can say like, hey, on error, run this other file, and that file can then read the string traceback in case you want to like show it on the display, or like imagine you're doing a game menu and you kick to another game and then the game crashes and your menu wants to like handle showing that in a nice way. Hey, Love the Factory. Hi, David Smith. And hello, Paul. Good audio here. Awesome. Larger than life, Scott. It's true. I will be larger than I actually am in person. Yeah, we didn't start yet. I was like kind of worried that I was going to have a repeat of last week. So what I did, yeah, I updated all my stuff yesterday, which I like to do, as you all probably know. But then what I did is I rebuilt OBS. Could somebody say hi on Twitch just to make sure that that's set up as well? And Dishipu says, now I have to include it in the Pew Pew menus. Yeah, it was done for Pew Pew, I think, by Christian. Thank you, Foamy Guy. Hello on Twitch. Okay, let's do housekeeping, and then if you have questions, which I'll say, it's gonna be super chill stream. So, yeah, let's get going on housekeeping. Oh, wait, before I start housekeeping, let me check my calendar, because I think next week is fine. Oh, come on. Next week is the 30th? Yeah, I should be able to do that. Okay. So Minnesota Mentat says, much love to whomever is doing the timestamping. That's DCD, David, has been doing that. Really, really helpful. So thank you a lot, David, and hugs to David for, and thanks to David for doing that. Esden had trouble with OBS when he started to stream on Tuesday too. Hi, Andrew Reed. Okay, I said I would do housekeeping, but I haven't done it yet. All right. Ooh, big screen. Hello, everyone. My name is Scott, and I work on CircuitPython for Adafruit. This is a deep dive that I do every week. Adafruit is an open source hardware and software company based out in New York City, but I live in Seattle here, so I'm streaming from my home office, and we're gonna just hang out and chat about all sorts of electronics-y things. I've got a number of projects I'm working on, so we'll or things I have to do, so we'll talk about those. CircuitPython is a version of Python designed for really inexpensive computers called microcontrollers. This device here, the black chip there, is a microcontroller, and they make it really easy and really cost-effective to get into programming. So that's what we work on more broadly. If you want to chat with me and a whole bunch of others, even when we're not streaming, we do have an Adafruit Discord server, which you can go to the URL. The middle box here is the Discord server. You can join by going to the URL adafru.it/discord. You can do that even if you're not watching the stream live as well. We have lots of channels, lots of help, and it's a moderated space as well. So we make sure that everyone's pleasant and friendly, and that it's the community that we all want to be a part of. So this is a deep dive. It happens every week at 2 p.m. Pacific. I'm in Seattle, so I think in Pacific time. It is occasionally shifted to Thursdays if I'm going to take Friday off. Next week, that is not the case. Next week, we'll do Friday as well. Typically, we go for 2 hours or more, depending on like if we're working on something. Questions are always welcome. We've been known for the tangents and learning different sorts of stuff. So that is all par for the course. So if you have questions, I see Paul just asked one. We'll get to that in just a second. Yeah, it's great. And we've gotten lots of great topics just out of questions, so that's good. I've got a lot of small stuff I want to do, so we should be here for the next 2 hours or so. Last up, the kitty in here, he's kind of in the sun. He's a white cat. That Spook, he's sleeping like a baby in the sun. He is epileptic, which means he does have seizures from time to time. He's been doing really, really well, so I don't expect it to happen at all. But if I am on stream but not paying attention and looking away, that's just me making sure that he's all right. But he's been on new meds since last fall, and he's been doing much better. So that's been awesome, and he spends like every day in here with me, so I wouldn't want to have to kick him out. All right, so that's housekeeping. Next week is on Friday. So we have, let's see, just looking to see if there's any questions in the Discord I missed. So Paul on YouTube says, question, I have 2 Arduino Nano RP2040 Connects, BLE device to device. As soon as the BLE object on the central is active, it appears the RGB LED cannot be controlled. Are you using CircuitPython? I don't know a whole lot about the RP2040 Connect, so I can't really help you. Honestly, if you're doing BLE, I really don't recommend the RP2040. I've seen a lot of people want to use the RP2040 wirelessly, either Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, and I don't recommend it. There's not a whole lot of reason. Like, there's only one unique thing to the RP2040, which is the PIOs and the dual core. But the PIOs generally, I think, are the thing that make the RP2040 really cool. And if you need Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, the chances are that you need PIO as well is, I think, pretty slim. So if you're doing Bluetooth, I recommend NRF52840s. If you're doing Wi-Fi, I recommend the ESP32S2. Having 2 processors coordinating is just like 2 chips coordinating is just a lot more, it's a lot trickier to get right. Paul says, no, this is not CircuitPython. The BLE is working, but the RGB LED is controlled from within the Wi-Fi BLE unit. I didn't know that. I haven't looked too closely at the Arduino Nano. Sorry, I don't know. That sounds like a Nina bug if it's the Nina that's controlling the RGB LED. Foamy Guy says, I don't have experience with it specifically, but my guess is that the Bluetooth libraries may be using the RGB LED as a status output. Yeah, potentially as well. I've seen that. I do want to do some RGB LED stuff. Bruce S. says, I may have ordered another keyboard. I have an addiction. Stop me. Which keyboard is it? We'll only stop you if it's not a cool keyboard, which it probably is. Yeah, sorry. I have only done a little bit of Arduino in my life, and it's not spectacular. Oh, Bruce S. says the keyboardio. The Model 100? Nerodoc says, he said stop, not enable me. Yeah, well, I'm not gonna... I know the Model 100 folks, I know the keyboardio folks. So I am happy that people are supporting them. And it is the newer version of the... It is the newer version of the the keyboard that I have, and I do like it a lot. In fact, I have been pushing... So... Oh, Bruce S. says, I know Jesse Vincent from Pearl Days. Yeah, so Jesse Vincent is one of the folks at Keyboardio. He goes by Obra online, and I've actually privately been I've been promoting using CircuitPython on that keyboard. So in the Kickstarter, it says, like, not exactly what microcontroller it is, and it says, like, this microcontroller or better. So there's a chance that you would be able to run CircuitPython on the Model 100. Now I want to see the build video. They have a really good Kickstarter video, or Yeah, I think they did actually do a Kickstarter instead of crowd supply. All right, I don't see any other questions. This is my knee, if you see it. I have a habit of not... I have a bad habit of sitting on my feet and stuff. Bruce S says, no, I can't write a single line of Perl. Yeah, Jesse's taken a long time to come around on Python because he is a Perl person. Paul says, I received 2 days ago and ordered Raspberry Pi 400. Today I sent it back to the seller because various keys were not working. Interesting. I'm not sure how their the keyboard works in the Pi 400, but I'm glad I'm glad they let you send it back. I do want to do... I'm still like in the back of my brain wanting to do native CircuitPython on the Raspberry Pi. So it'll happen at some point. It's just a question of when. Well, I think it's a question of when. We'll see. Sitting on my feet, so long as you're not walking on your bum, you're okay. It's true. I'm not walking on my bum. TCB says I do write command line or long Perl lines. All right. So let me just talk about what I've been working on. So I mentioned it a little bit earlier. Let's go to the desktop. But 7.0 is Minnesota Mentat says just remember to stand every so often. Very true. I think I'm pretty good about that. Like after I'm done streaming here, I usually get up and like go for a walk and stuff. So, and I just sat down like a half an hour before the stream. Hey Dave, because I had lunch. So, okay, so if you can see here, we have 4 pull requests open, which is awesome. And in fact, look at this. We can get it back down to 3. Let's just do this quick review here. So this is just a small cleanup from Christian, who says, just had these comments. No, it's good. Yeah, so last week, Dan and Jeff and Kattni and I got together and we went through all of the open issues for 7.0 and also all of the open pull requests. Thanks, Christian, again for that. So now we're down to 3, which is awesome. Interesting, this number is 4 still. It's like, didn't reload everything. Yeah, so we've only got these 3 left, and I was like, oh, I'll do more. And then for issues-wise, so the way that we tend to do stable releases is that we have a milestone, and for a given milestone, what we do is we just have all these issues that we want to fix before we actually start doing release candidates. So I think I've heard this called as like a bug bounce, and maybe I've talked about this on the stream before, but the idea is that you have a big long list of stuff that you want to get done before the stable release. You get that list down to 0, and that is when you do what a release candidate, saying, if we don't find any bugs on this in the next week or so, then we'll call that the stable release, and then we're off to the races. If you do find some issues, then what you do is you add them to this list, and you fix them, and then do another release candidate. So what we did is we went through these, we had like, I don't know, like 70 issues under the 7.0. We kind of moved them around, closed the ones that we didn't think, that sort of thing. And now we've only got 28 open. And a lot of these are assigned. It looks like Dan has a lot assigned to himself still. Dan's got 11. I had 12 to start with, but what I've been working on is fixing the bugs assigned to me. I've got 5. And we thought Jeff was going to take some vacation and have a visitor, but it turned out that's not the case. So Jeff's going to help us get these down as well. Yeah, Foamy Guy says, I'm working on some of the blocking changes in the libraries for 4940 is waiting on. Thank you. Then we get down to 2. Yeah, so I thought I'll answer a question that Doctor has, and then we could go in a little bit more detail about the stuff that I've already fixed. And then I think this blink 10 neopixel on the playgrounds for status is going to be pretty simple, and I thought that would be really helpful, especially with the new Bluetooth stuff. So I thought we could do that on the stream today. It should be pretty straightforward. Doctor says, if native CircuitPython on the Pi was a thing, would we get real multi-core support? And would that gain multi-core support on the Pico? No, even though we would get criticized just like we do for the Pico. So there's nothing saying that we have to use more than one core on the Pi natively. And in fact, it's still going to feel super fast. It's still going to be a ton of RAM. And you will still be able to do all of the graphic stuff. It's the HDMI output that really excites me about the Pi. And so really the reasons that I want to do the Raspberry Pi don't require multi-core. It would be another reason to do multi-core, but it's not a precondition for it. So I would say those are two separate things, multi-core and native Pi support. Concurrency is hard. I've got to reiterate it. Concurrency is really hard to get right. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard to get right on our side, and it's hard to get right on the on anything. I'd imagine the regular Pi's single CPU cores are way faster than even the 2 Pi Pico cores. Yeah, like the Raspberry Pi 4, I think default clock speed is like 700 megahertz. And that, like, it has separate GPU circuitry that just, it's actually the GPU that boots the regular cores. So, it's pretty interesting and weird. David says, did anyone check the blink 4 LEDs on the mag tag? It may only blink 1 or 4 depending on what code blinks it. Yeah, and that's one thing that yeah. That's one thing I was just going to look at is whether we do more than one or not. Deshipu points out that the Pi also has L1 and L2 caches and such. Yeah, but it also has giant slow memory, giant slow RAM. And Minnesota Mentat points out that the multiple cores are unnecessary for most use cases. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, part of my hope is that I can get us to the point where we can, where somebody else can come along and do that for advanced stuff. Ooh. Hey, ask Patrick. Oh, dear. And oh, spammers. Tishipu says you can always put more microcontrollers in your project. 100%. Bruce S says, okay, trying to do a pull from main, get the issue with the ports Raspberry Pi SDK live tinyusb has moved to some new point in time. What's the best way to get it all straight? What I recommend is go into the ports Raspberry Pi SDK folder and then do a git submodule update. Do not do recursive because tinyusb has submodules of its own for all the different vendor hals, which we should get rid of, but if you do recursive, you're going to slurp down a lot of stuff you don't actually need. Does it still not work? The other thing to try is git submodule sync. Can also be easier, or git submodule sync will change if the repository that the submodule is pointed to is different, and then you want to sync before you update. And git status, remember, I should make a t-shirt like git status Like it's always get status. Will tell you when you've gotten it right. All right, let's see if we can find my other pull request before we get into actually making the blinks work. Let's just see a little bit of what I did. So we were talking, Paul was talking about the Arduino RP2040 Connect previously. And one thing I did in the last week was I fixed the RP2040 flash size detection. So what that involved is this code here. So when you do flash initialization, we figure out the flash size, and we try to do it by reading the RDID register, some ID register. But what happens is that there's WinBond and GigaDevice. Their third data byte that you get back is a power of 2 indication of how big the flash is. So you can actually read from the flash how big it is. But Adafruit, which is the flash that is used on the Arduino, it's either that or Micronics. They don't do that for that third byte. And so what you would do is 21's the default, which is 2 megabytes. And 2 megabytes, half is used for CircuitPython and half is used for the file system. So that's what this 21 is here. And then what I did is I plugged in this default power of 2, which is computed by this gen stage2.py file. So it looks over all the configured flash devices. It gets the capacity, which is our copy of what that third byte is. If it's not in the range that we know is, like, we consider valid, then we use the total size, which is also the size of the flash, figure out its power of 2, and then we save that. So we have, like, for any of the flashes that are not within that range, don't tell it properly, then we also pass it in as that. And then it gets put into this .h file, and this is the build stuff for that. So Bruce says, I get lots of these is inside Git directory. I mean, you could try just doing recursive, but I haven't had that problem, which is weird. Yeah, submodules are not a great tool. They can be tricky to get right. Yeah, I'm not sure, sorry. What is the syntax in the default power 2 template? So that is Jinja. So this right here is it's the header file .jinja. So what GenStage2 does is it takes in a file and then applies these values. So this flash settings is a dictionary that gets put into the Jinja template, and then it writes out the file. Jinja, yeah, Jinja2, Jinja 2. So yeah, so that's one of the fixes. Another fix. Oh, don't blink. Oh, I did a lot. So ScanEntry.matches has a keyword arg that is all, and all is a reserved name in Python, so we switched it to match all. but I made it so that you can still actually provide all, and it will just use the, if either of them was false, then it'll be false. So I did that, and this MicroPy port macros. So if you ever looked at boards in SAMD land, they have these MicroPy port bitmaps, which are like, they were used before never reset was a standard sort of thing internally. And so it was used primarily here to like not reset QSPI pins, not reset, these are random pins, not reset neopixel. So you had to maintain these like weird bit masks. And so I got rid of all that because it was causing an issue with all of the RGB status LED changes I made. The RGB status LED changes I made initialize all the status LED stuff just to blank, and then they turn it off. And what was happening is because we have had some of those pins in these older, like pre-never reset bit masks, the pins would not get reset, which meant they would not end up on, they would not be usable the second time around. So I changed it to just all use never reset for all this stuff, which is a big cleanup. It's like 115 files. Really happy with that. Don't blink blue on non-BLE workflow boards. This is like the macro pad was blinking yellow and then blinking blue. But I added this thing of if the BLE file service or the serial BLE is not there, then just return in the initialization. And I also tried to make it so that if it's gonna boot in discovery mode by default, then it will be blue as well. Which there's some more BLE problems still that I have yet to deal with. Fix crash when UART construct fails. So this was an interesting thing. There was also a bug that says like we should be better about raising error on SAMDs if the UART buffer you give it is not a power of 2. So I added this this error here, and turns out this is a way to check to see if it's a power of 2. You and the value with the value below it, because if you have a value that's a power of 2, it's a 1 0 0 0 0 0 0 0, and if you subtract 1, what you do is that 1 turns to a 0, and then you get ones all of the lower bit positions. And so this is a way to check for that, which is really clever, and I stole it from ASF. But there was also some really nasty crashes that were happening if you in your UART construction you raised an exception, and the reason that is because we have the UART automatically deinit itself if the object gets deleted. It's called a finalizer. And what was happening is that we were creating this object, partially instantiating it, raising an exception, which caused that object to be deinitted. But when we deinit it, we're passing memory that's not necessarily set yet. So what I had to do here is I had to set the states for each object to make sure that they're actually, like, the deinit check actually says it's deinitted before it actually gets initialized. So that was another fix, and that was a crash fix, so that was a good one. I fixed the tooling thing, which I didn't check, but MicroDev did check, which only, so when you get an absolute latest build, there was a risk you would actually get different branch builds, but now we'll only push those builds from main to S3. Flash size fix I talked about, and then the last thing that I did that got merged in is this. We had 4 spots where we were returning OSError 0, which actually doesn't make any sense. So I went in and I removed or changed the error number value of those things. But then I realized that all this old WizNet network socket stuff was in here, and that we're not using it anymore. It's turned off. So I actually deleted it as well. This is mostly just deletes. Cleaning that up. So that's kind of been my week, little more than a week, just cruising through this stuff. It's been really nice. It's me making a lot of progress rather than hitting my head against the BLE issues. But if we go back, this is my list here. So I thought we'd do these blink 10 neopixels on the playgrounds for status today. This NRF52840 clue debug 1 build not booting is an issue I just haven't been able to figure out, that I've looked at some already that I need to take a look at again. Somebody's working on this print exception thing, so I'm going to take a look at that before I do it. Refactor pulseout to not take PWMOut as a parameter is actually what I'm working on as well. And maybe we should start with that actually, because I was testing in all the different builds and I've actually made some progress. And then this last one I have to do is this Ctrl-C is not interrupting any deep sleep alarms and simulated deep sleep. So that should be a relatively straightforward thing too. And actually that's an ESP. That's an ESP thing. So maybe, oh, it's even in a draft PR. Wow, that's an old issue from January. So if I'm running on the ESP, I might actually just do this. MP-hal is interrupted, cannot detect Ctrl-C outside Python execution. Might do that too. What do folks think? What are folks interested in watching me do? But for boot error, only the rightmost blinks. Should I open an issue? Well, David, I think the difference might be bootloader versus CircuitPython. Let's just do the blinking one first. That's going to be really easy. Hopefully. Hopefully it will be. I do have that. Start with the easiest one first. Well, I'm in the middle of one of them. Let's do that. So I was working on the pulse out stuff. How are you feeling about these low-hanging fruit or harder items? They're generally much smaller things, which has been, it's a really nice change of pace for all of the BLE work I've been doing. I'm going to get back to the BLE work soon. I've got some irons in the fire for host side stuff, but yeah, I've been doing a lot of hard stuff, so knocking out the easy stuff is fun. All right, let me show this. So here's how I start a new branch to work on, which I've been doing a lot because I'm usually you introduce bugs, now you're fixing them. I'm fixing the bugs, but I don't necessarily not introduce more bugs while I'm at it. Bang it out and enjoy. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so here's how here's what I do when I'm starting a new thing. So I'm in this pulse out switch branch, and I just fetched Adafruit, so I got like the updated versions of where main is. So I'm going to do git checkout Adafruit main. And if I do git status, we'll see that microlab got updated. So I'm going to do a git submodule update init, and I'm in the ESP directory. So now it's green, but I'm still in this detached state. That's why you get the commit hash in that green section there. That's where the branch name would usually show up. So I'll do a git switch, and I'll call it playground status, because I think it's just the circuit playgrounds that need it. And then I will, so now I'm ready for my changes. Let's just, I mean, this issue is really not interesting because I filed it. I just said like blink the 10 neopixels on the playgrounds for status, and we can do that now because we're not going to like spend a bunch of power. That's going to be really easy, famous last words. Yeah, true. True, David. Okay. So we're going to do that. It's hopefully going to be easy. I'm going to start with the Bluefruit. And actually one thing that can make it more difficult is that it's crashing some. But let's pull up our source and let me make it a bit bigger. So ideally what we have is, hey Wagon Loads, no worries being late, that's why it's a long stream. So first what I'm going to see is, well, one, I should just close all the files I have because I have a bunch of PWM related files open. Let's do, so we're going to go into ports, NRF, boards. And then ideally what we have is we have, we're going to be doing the Circuit Playground Bluefruit. And let's just look at how the clue works. Or, you know, what was it? Pygamer. Pygamer has 5. So if we look at Pygamer, I think it's Pygamer, and we look at how we're defining it. So there's a hardware LED status. Oh, look at this, doesn't actually have neopixel either. Maybe we're not doing status LEDs on it. Whereas if we look at like the clue here, there's this hardware neopixel define. So that's what we're going to want to use here. And let's just grep for, so there, or no, maybe the better thing is to look at how it's implemented. So in supervisor at the top level, we have shared, and then we have status LEDs. And what it's going to say is like, oh, if you have MicroPy hardware neopixel, and then it has a fixed length here, status neopixel color. So if we're going to want to be able to do more than just a single one, we're actually going to want to make this dynamic. You can see, no, .stars is the same as well. So we're going to have to do a little more work than I was hoping. If neopixel, and then, but we can do that. Reset, new color. So let's see. 4. So I'm thinking ahead to when we have to worry about how many there are. So I'm going to do count and then I plus plus. This won't work for RGB LED colors either. Three times I plus that. It's probably bad to have all these 3s hard-coded. This will be 3 times I, or micropi neopixel count. So that's the right, and then here, multiply that by the count too. So now we should be able to say MicroPy hardware neopixel and then define hardware neopixel count And it's generally good policy to put 10 or parentheses around 10. Bruce says, I really did enjoy listening to Jimmo last week. Thanks again for that. Yeah, thanks to Jim for joining. This code here is not using JSON wagon loads. Skur asks, in terms of microcontroller support, do you think we're coming to the point where the SAMD21 is just too small to be productive for future CircuitPython releases? I would say no. But you really have to, like, the SAMD21 is limited, but that doesn't make it not useful. It just makes it useful for small things. Like, we're not making CircuitPython inherently bigger, right? Like the things that you were able to run on SAMD21s before, you should still be able to do. There are like corner cases where that's not the case, but generally it should stay true. What you'll find is just like we're not really adding new stuff. Neopixels says, I have had issues where the code would do a memory error on SAMD21, but not in 6. Yeah, that can happen if something's really close between the two. I would like to see some practical metrics on RAM usage in 6 versus 7. That's true. The in-memory forms may have changed a little bit. Jim was great. I'm still shocked you got him up so early. He emailed me. He was like, I know you offered, and I just was working on this bug. I thought it would be fun to talk over in your deep dive. And I was like, I'm not going to say no. You're always welcome. And Damien is too. I need to email everybody. We were going to meet up again. Okay, so we have MicroPy hardware NeoPixel count, and we have NeoPixel. I am wondering, does the Circuit Playground Bluefruit have a power switch for the NeoPixels? I think it might. Actually, let's go from the shop. Circuit Playground. My fingers want to type CircuitPython. Oh, it's in stock. That's good. Updated the design to turn off the NeoPixels. Let's see. I don't know what version I have. So if you want to find schematics, I go to the product page, hit primary guide, and then hit downloads. And then in downloads, usually you can get the schematic. And if we look here, light sensor, sorry, I'll do the bigger one. So here the accelerometer is on 3.3 volts, but sound sensor is on V+, light sensor is on V+. NeoPixels aren't on this page. So if we go back here, power supply NeoPixels. So all the NeoPixels are on V+ as well. And NeoSense switch is what which connects 3.3 volts to V+. And it's pulled down. So I'm not sure which way we have to set it. But we have to be aware of that. Bye, doctor. Okay, so D8 NeoPixel. Since we're here, let's just take a look at which pin we're using. NeoSense switch is 007. So let's put that in. Is P007. And then NeoPixel is on too many windows. It's called D8 NeoPixel. D8 neopixel is 13. Okay. P013. So we're going to save that, and then we're going to make... Oh, that's not what I want. Do that letter. Circuit playground Bluefruit clean. Source. I'm in the different virtual environment because of the IDF stuff. Yeah. David says, nice thing about working in an open hardware company is that you don't need to go to internal documentation. Everything is out there. It's true. I do occasionally need to, because we only publish the schematics when the product is out. But I do actually we have one giant repo internally that has all the files as well. So I can pull all those down if I want to, if I need to for unreleased stuff. So if you ever find that a product is released and the schematics are not out yet and you have a question, I'm more than happy to answer questions about it if the product's released. Okay, so let me switch away from my camera. I am perusing my desk for a cable to plug into. USB cable. I'm also charging my headphones. There's this one. I guess my headphones are probably charged. I'm gonna go rock climbing after this. Okay, so hopefully the overhead's working. Hey, you can see my clock. I have it sitting there. It is 84 Fahrenheit in here. Okay, so I've got this Bluefruit. And I'm gonna, actually let me lock the focus. So I'm gonna plug it in. So see, the bootloader actually does use all of the neopixels for status. So if I like double tap reset to get in the bootloader, and I was just about to clean this LED stuff off my desk, but I guess it's good that I haven't. We can see that it's green, so that's climbing indoors. Just gonna climb at the climbing gym. Okay, so let me switch to desktop overhead. So I'm gonna pull up the build with ports. I've actually got a lot of CircuitPython devices plugged in right now. Maybe I should remove that. So this one can go. And I was gonna set up my macropad. I realized it would be really nice to just have my macropad doing pause and play on my Spotify, because I like get up and go around. Okay, so I have the Circuit Playground Bluefruit bootloader going, and I'm going to copy that over. So it's going to copy. Oh, and it's interesting, it's red now. But it's nice that it uses it. Oh, look, it worked. Love it. All right, well, it turns out the power is on by default. I wonder if we should change that. I might have an older revision of the board, so let's see if we can't figure out what revision this is. So usually revisions on Adafruit boards are in a circle, so this is revision G. And I just realized that it's upside down, so I'm going to flip it. And I will change the scene as well. So if you're looking for a revision of a circuit or of an Adafruit board, it's usually in a circle. So in here, it's this circle thing here. It's G. I think it confuses some people when it is C because it looks like a copyright. Bootloader of MagTag blinks 4 orange LEDs when you upload firmware, but bootloader of Circuit Playground does not do that. Where is the difference? So the problem is that we used to have different UF2 bootloaders for everything. So SAMD UF2, NRF UF2 were done separately. And then the MagTag is an ESP32S2, right, which has tiny UF2 on it. So with the ESP32S2, we tried to migrate to like one code base for the UF2 bootloader. So it's just, it's not going to be the same unless you have the exact same code running it. It's just pet peeve of mine. But yeah, if we check that out again, like I guess it's kind of hard to see now, but it works. That makes me happy. And in fact, you know what? Since we're here, so if I hit reset, oh, that was not reset. I hit reset again. Safe mode and then B lead link is what you're seeing. But because it's working, it makes me think that we're not actually shutting down power. I think I've asked this before, but I can't remember the answer. How do you deal with changes on boards like in CircuitPython like this, where new hardware features added like this power switch I/O? I think we will do different board definitions if there's pins that have changed. But I think in this case, the board revision only added a single. This is the board revision only added a new pin's use. So I don't think the pin is connected in the first versions. So I can just treat it like it's the second one, and it will still work. Like it just won't. Like it's by default powering everything, and so really what I want is like I want to add code right now. I'm gonna just do it right now where it's actually turning it off, because I think that would be great. So there is in board.c. Oh, here you go. Look at that. Turn off board.power switch on each software load. Oh, so you know what it's not doing? What it's not doing here is it's not blinking the status of the code. Oh yeah, you don't see my code. Okay, yeah. Sorry. I should set up a thing where you all can vote to see something else. Okay, so where we are is we're in NRF boards, Circuit Playground Bluefruit, board.c. And there's this reset board call. And what it's doing is it's turning off the power switch pin. Which power switch pin comes from here. Unexpected Mirror says, so as an example, I've not added a VBAT divider on my FS2 because I can't find a way for a user to know if they can read it or not, because if I can't tell what the board revision is. I mean, what would that, oh. I mean, if the pin was not doing anything else previously, I would just add it. Can't get SAMD 21s anyway. Deshupu says they could check if the pin is present in the board module. The problem is the board module is statically defined for the board build. So Toddbot's asking, is there a description of the different board revisions? I have a Rev D, but I'm not seeing anything like that. D is not working, it seems. Oh, are you trying this board? Yeah, so not all of the revisions are released. So one thing that's interesting here is there's Rev D1. But I wonder if we looked at the power... No, the power one's marked as D1 as well. So what I would do is, if we go back to the product page, or... Usually revisions don't change anything you'd notice. Gary says you need a second simultaneous stream that shows the code window in full screen. Yeah. Do they have dual screen streaming yet? I only have one screen, but I don't. Let's see if it says. Come to all pads, each pin, internally used spins, speaker shutdown. Set to output and high to turn off power. Accelerometer is not turned off. I think it was done quite early on, so I don't think there's a lot that don't have it. So it says as of November 22nd, 2019, that's when the design was updated. So if you look at your order, this doesn't say when it actually happened, or what the revision mark was. Yeah, we do, like, you will, if you notice, there will be revisions, but largely they don't change anything. Largely they're just for manufacturability that they get tweaked. Okay, so I think that there is now board init and board deinit. I think I introduced board deinit. Yeah. So there's a weak version of it. So I think what we could do I keep one unit from each revision? No way. Most of them don't ever get made, I think. But no, I don't. I usually have any prototypes that I got, I'll have. And then, like, usually one of the early copies. I don't often... I did get, for this Bluefruit, I did get a newer revision, I guess, because I was doing power work. So I think what we want to do is we want to say... How do we... Do we require... management of power switch? Let's see. So one thing that's really neat is you can get the Adafruit learning system guides repo and then search it, power switch. Oh. The other trick is the bundle. Is there another name for it? D35. If high. Oh, so it sets it. What? I don't know where this code came from, because that doesn't seem right to me. This makes sense. Okay, David and Neradoc have D revisions. There's multi-twitch. Pin 7, I think, might be the neopixel pin, where D6 is this power switch pin. So it's only the power stuff. Power stuff that the older one may not have. But yeah, I could actually check. Yeah, let's just... I get blame on here, but let's just take a look. It's weird to me that there's any sort of code in there. Ports. Because it's got a pull down, and it's setting the value to that pull down. So it should just get reset like normal. I would think. Oop, not Atmel. NRF, boards, circuit playground, board, lane. Code formatting. You can click this thing to just go back in time. Add power switch. Dan added it. Oh yeah, Alvaro says, I'm working as a contractor for FieldKit. That's awesome. Adafruit for the outside. Yeah. Turn off power switch on each soft reload to prevent confusion. I don't know why. I don't know why that's happening. It might have been... if I turns them off. Set pin to output low on each reload. This disables power saving until it's re-enabled. At the cost of a brief power glitch on reload. But it's pulled down. Right? Like we looked at the... Nice to see the good blame GUI on GitHub. Thanks for the demo. Yeah, I don't know how to do it otherwise. I just always done it on GitHub. Yeah. It prevents confusion, but it pulls down, right? Like, I'm not wrong. I think that... See, this is how I'm getting to the schematic again. Like, if we look here, it's power off when it's high, and it's pulled down. So really what we just needed to do is reset the pin, and it should be fine. But I actually do, I think what I want is... I want board init explicitly turn it on, which is false. And then when we go into board deinit, which we can look at when it happens, we want it true. We should probably check if there's like any sort of alarms, but I'm gonna cheat it. if we look at main and unexpected maker, you may want to look. I don't think your boards do this either. But if we look at board deinit, it's called right before we go into deep sleep. Regardless of whether we're faking it or not. So board deinit is there. That's the only place. So that's a way to shut your board down before you deep sleep. And then when we wake up, we turn it back on with board init. So we don't need to manage it with the blinking because we're going to... We don't blink when we're in deep sleep. So it should still be fine, but this will turn it off. To prevent confusion. Turn on power to... I don't get it though. You don't need to turn it on. I guess if we did this board deinit, but I'm not even sure that works because sometimes the values aren't held. We'll just leave it. To sensors and neopixels. Let's just do it that way. Okay. And the pin shouldn't be never reset, so to provide confusion. All right, let's do one more test and then we'll call this one good. And I also do have the older Circuit Playground Express, and we'll do the same for it. And it should just work, hopefully. So let's just make it one more time. And I will double tap into the bootloader. And it's green. Sorry, I've got too much stuff on my desk. I think so, yes. It's a high side switch. Low for on, high for off. So you need to explicitly set it high. Correct. Yeah. So I set it high here, and I set it high in board.deinit. And then in board init, I turn it low so that power is going. All right, it's built. We're in the right board folder. It's red when it's copying over, apparently. And then we should get the we should get the safe mode blinks and then the Bluefruit blinks. Yep. Perfect. That's what I want. Okay, let's check the other one. So let's do Atmel SAMD. And let's just steal this. Oh, did I say, is that where I said 7? Yeah. I must have read it off the schematic wrong. Or it's wrong here. Let's double check. NeoSense switch. NeoSense switch looks like... Wow, that's really confusing. It must be 6. I don't know how this label is anchored to this green line. It must be, I assume Dan tested it. It must be 6. Let's double check. We can check the Bluefruit pins file as well. It's 6 here too. Yeah, I must have had it wrong. Alright, let's do the Atmel side. So this is going to take a little more RAM on the Circuit Playground Express, but I think it should be fine. Oh, and there's 3 variants of it, so let's do it for all 3 variants as well. But we'll test on the regular one first. And let's do the same thing here to figure out. Actually, you know, we don't need to figure it. There's a quicker way. If we just look in the pin out here and look for neopixel, we can see it's on 23. So like that. And now we make. Build, and let's unplug this. Plug this in. Oh, it looks like the bootloader here uses the first pixel. What is that? That must be a bug. Bright green. DCD says, could you look at the schematic in Eagle? I've opened the Eagle schematics using KiCad, but I have not. I don't have Eagle installed. But yeah, I could mess with it if I needed to. I trust that it's right. And either way, it's working. Like, the thing that's not going to work is it's not going to get into a lower power state, but we haven't done a whole lot to optimize that anyway. So it's not the end of the world. Okay, we have boot here, but now we need to go to the other directory. Circuit Playground Express. Firmware UF2. I'm so spoiled by UF2, let me tell you. Alright, so we got the safe mode blinks. We should get the... We're getting safe mode blinks, but we're not getting the like single green blink that it worked. Which is weird. Oh, there it is. Maybe I was wrong. I don't know if I'm connected to the right thing. Here's a cool thing that I've been trying to use. You can do serial by ID, and then Adafruit, and then Circuit Playground. Ah, so now we're in the REPL. REPL worked. It should be like every 5 seconds. Oh, there's a code.py running, which I have no idea what it is. What does code.py? Oh, it sleeps and counts. Okay. That's not useful. Okay, so it is working. Alright, Toddbot confirms it is 6. Awesome. You could stream on 360 and have all the code screen on one of the sides. This makes it way more usable, right? Like having it blink as the status. Everyone in agreement on that? That is a better thing to do. Okay. So I think all I have to do here is I do it for the other two as well. And I could test it, but I'm not gonna. These are different Circuit Playground Express builds that have different frozen stuff in them, which I am very not happy about, but they work for their purpose. So now we do get status. And switch to seeing me. Get diff. So now we support. Hi Pitsy. Greetings from Germany. Any other boards? I guess people can add other boards later. I'm not gonna worry about it. Okay. All right, so we're good. Support multiple status neopixels. Use the 10 on each on the playground boards. Our status. And we say it fixes. Don't want that space. $50.39. I got this idea when I was chatting with Trevor, because he was trying to get the Bluetooth stuff working on it, and I was like, should make it more obvious. Like, we were using just the red LED, but it's much more obvious this way. We've got them, we might as well use it. Oh. Alright, so I push that. And now I can... GitHub shows it up here, and now I can compare and pull requests. I won't set... I'll set a milestone. Labels. Enhancement. SAMD. NRF. Supervisor. Be blue for Bluetooth. Yeah, so when it starts up, it blinks slowly for safe mode and then faster for Bluetooth. And if you hit reset in either of those periods, what you'll do is if you hit it in the safe mode one, it'll reset and then stay in safe mode. If it's blue for Bluetooth, it will reset and then it will be blue for the solid second, and then it will go into like it erases all of your bonding information and like advertises publicly. So we'll create that pull request. All right, so that has that done, and now I think, does my history have, yeah, my issues. So one thing I noticed here is that there's this neat little icon here for the number of pull requests that refer to something. This one's a red herring. This pull request that's linked doesn't actually fix it, but that's the other thing to work on. Or I'm gonna have to have a second one here. But it's nice, when I had a list of 10, I could keep track of like which ones were in progress that way, which was nice. So I want to go to do this pulse out stuff that I was trying to finish for the week, right? Like this is like the last work I'm doing of the week. So I want to, let's just look. I pushed a new version that should have built. So I just want to check on the CI. This is another thing I just found. This branches thing is super useful, especially for me because I have lots of branches. It's been great because it shows you the latest branches that you push to. So in these cases where I'm doing a lot of small branches for a lot of different fixes, it's been really helpful to keep track of like which ones are active, right? So I did the main S3 thing, that's done, and I could delete these, which I probably should. I wish there was a setting, like people have been confused. They go here and they're like, you still have a master branch and it's like way behind. Like, why do you have that? Like, I wish I could set my default branch here to just the latest that I pushed to. I think that would be really nice. Anyway, you can go to the branch thing here and then see the current one. I'm gonna want to switch to the pulse out switch because I want to work on that now. This is gonna be maybe one of my more productive streams. Let's check the build here. It's still yellow. There's 4 successful, 10 in progress, and 86 queued, which is great. Nothing's failed yet, so we'll keep an eye on that. I'm just doing some manual testing here, which I think I've lost my test program, so I'll snag it off one of these other ones that I have it on. But what I was working on is this PWM switch. So this close. So this refactor pulse out to not take a PWMOut. So Hierophect Lucian filed this. If we look at the docs, we just look at the 6.3 docs and we look at pulse out. Pulse out. Pulse out takes a carrier, which is a PWMOut. And this was a shortcut I kind of took when I created the pulse out API, because there's a lot of settings on PWMOut that we also wanted for pulse out. Now, this caused some weirdness because like PWMOut should start doing PWM immediately, whereas like if you're going to use it on a pulse out, you don't necessarily want that. And then what came up is that the ESP32S2 has this RMT peripheral that doesn't use the PWM stuff, but it can do PWM carriers. So what Lucian did in this linked PR was that they made it so that if we look at EN latest, and this is actually still not updated. This is one of the things I'm doing in the PR. If we look at the pull request in shared bindings pulse out, we'll see that there's actually like 2 modes that pulse out constructors are in now. And this is in 6.3, I think. And the reason is that the ESP doesn't use PWMouts for PWMing out the carrier wave. And so what Lucian added was this like 2 different ways to do construction. So here it's like construct with the PWMout. This is the old way. And then here's a new way where you can give the pin the carrier frequency and the carrier duty cycle. Although this is actually a bug I found. There's 2 ARG frequencies here. So duty cycle wouldn't actually work in this case. Usually it doesn't matter. Although that could provide invalid values. Anyway, that's a bug. But we wanted to move to this model of like pulse out is separate from PWMout. And because we're in the 7.0 mode, now's a great time to do it. So in 7, we'll support both ways, but we'll document the new way. And internally, we'll use the new way. So that's what I've been working on. If we look at my branch. So we're on my branch here. We can hit contribute. This is gonna be I can't change this for some reason. So it's gonna be really confused. Say, oh, you can't merge straight to MicroPython, but then I set it to Adafruit CircuitPython, and it's like, there's no master branch. I changed that, and now I get a good diff. So there's some messages disappearing. The constructor is simplified, so it's just the constructor will always take pin, frequency, and duty cycle. So all of them will now work the new way of like managing the PWMOut itself. That's what a lot of this is like the pulseout now has a PWMOut internally, which makes a lot of sense in terms of like lifetime management. I had to add this get pin. So what happens is that if in the constructor for pulseout, if you give it a PWMOut, once this is checked in, what it does is it basically reads all the settings from the PWMOut and then deinitializes it. And then reconstructs it later. There's some like stub code in the IMX stuff that didn't need to be there, so I deleted that. Yeah, so changing some of the pin stuff. And are we to shared bindings yet? I don't think so. So I had to change it in all the ports. But see here you can see the docs are changed now, so it's no longer, oh, let me make it bigger. So these are the doc changes. So the docs that we were just looking at come from these sections. These are the C files and shared bindings. They have this //bar prefix. These get slurped out and treated as Python stubs. So the syntax of things here is like a Python stub file, which is actually really handy for editors as well. But you can see here we're switching it from taking a PWMOut carrier to the 3 pin frequency and duty cycle settings. And then I note that you can also pass in a PWMOut, but I'm like trying to demote the old way. So it'll be compatible, you won't have to update it, but it'll be documented the other way. And then the way that it works is that we have different argument parsing, and then this is the stuff that's deleted. So we take pin frequency duty cycle straight out of the arguments, but then if the first thing is the PWMOut type, we kind of like snag the duty cycle frequency and pin from it, and then we deinitialize it, which is actually not quite backwards compatible. So if you actually had like a PWMOut that you used like twice in a row, like if you do PWMOut, pulseout, deinit, pulseout, new pulseout, deinit, pulseout, you would actually get an error because now that pulseout constructor will deinit the original PWMOut, but I don't care about compatibility that much. Hopefully that won't rear its ugly head, and I'll have to like revert my words, but yeah. So that's all in shared bindings, and then in terms of common HAL, it just has the new standard API for it. So what I've been doing is I had to factor out these error messages for PWMOut, which is not that big of a deal, and then said, hey, like, don't use this. We're going to delete that later. So all I'm doing is now, like, because I had to change a bunch of ports, I've got to just test a bunch of ports. So let me show how I was testing it, and I'll snag the test code while I'm at it. So going back to the overhead, did someone just create a meme of that? A meme of what? A meme of me? Please tell me someone captured that for later. Oh, me saying I'd probably eat my words. Well, it'll be there. It'll be there. Okay, so what I've got here is you can see just the corner of this alia. And let's unplug this because we're done with that. And I've got feather NRF52840 Express, and I'm just going to plug that in, and what you'll see is this D3, if it's connected, well, right, it might blink, I'm not sure. But basically I have the Salier plugged into it, and if I go to the desktop and do, oh yeah, backwards compatibility. I said I don't care that much about compatibility. Not quite backwards compatible. Yeah, y'all got me. I don't know why it's extra long. So what we can do is we can start this up, and then when I plug it in, it does this pulseout train. Announcing CircuitPython 8, now actually JavaScript. No, definitely not. Although that was funny that I confused people. The one deep dive I was working on JavaScript. Okay, so here's the sample code, and the reason I plugged this in is because I want to snag the sample code for other stuff. So I've renamed this drive here, and I'll just double click. So here's what the sample is doing. So here is the old way where you construct a PWMOut, pass it into pulseout, and then do some stuff. Then I deinit them both, and now I do the pulseout the new way by giving it the pin and the frequency and the duty cycle directly. And I've switched up the frequency so I can check that it's different. And then this is almost the same pulse train, it's slightly different. So if we look here, the overlay says, which is probably pretty small for you, but it says 38.005 kilohertz frequency. This is 70 kilohertz frequency, so that's correct. And then this gap here should be the 2000, but it's 2000 microseconds, so this is 2.016358 milliseconds, so that is close enough as well. So it's working here, and now I wanted to snag that code.py so I could test it on the unexpected maker feather wing. So you can see that. So now I'm gonna move this D13 to D17, I guess. It's labeled 17. I might have to rename it. And this is why I pushed so hard to have the numbering the same. But we'll get there. And I'm going to unplug this and steal. This is USB-C, so I had to get a different USB cable. So let's see where this is at. I don't think. Does that have CircuitPython on it? No. Let me make sure my switch is switched. So I think I have tinyusb on it, so if I hit do, now I'm in tinyusb. And we can see that the bootloader is there. I'm just waiting for all the codes to break and the user to revolt and the memes start rolling out. Pulseio is not going to be the reason people are up in arms. There are other stuff in 7 that we're trying to break now rather than when we're stable, but inevitably it will come up. That's what major versions are all about. That's what motivates major versions, is us changing stuff. And I know it's painful, but I like to do it because the longer you wait between major versions, the more comfortable people get with the idea that they don't have to know how to update stuff. So it's a good forcing function for people to like keep those skills sharp. Would magnetic data cables work on these boards? I don't see why not. I'm not exactly sure what you mean. That poor CI needs some C cache. I would love it if people wanted to help make the CI faster. I'm not entirely sure how C cache works, but okay, so I mounted it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to hit save as, and put it there. And before I do that, I'm going to do the Salier and hit save. Replace. Oh, and I didn't change the... Do I have my TO window open? No, I do not. I'm liking this by ID thing. Let's see what it says. So it looks like it's running. My neopixel is blinking weirdly on it. Yeah, I didn't change the pin. Yeah. That's why it didn't work. So let's go back here and say, actually, this is exactly when I like to use the REPL board IO 17, right? Okay, that's simple enough. I think that's the prefix we have for the numbers on the board. And let's check. There we go. And we get 38, 38, 70, 70, 70. So this is still working. And this gap here is 2. Wow, that's like more accurate. It's 2.000924. So it's like much, it's like, it is more accurate than the other one. The NRF was. Cool. Okay, so ESP works. I've got 2 more boards that I should test. I have I'm not sure this one will work. I was going to use I couldn't find my other RP2040 feather. So let me start with STM. Good night, Dishipu. Thanks for hanging out. Okay, we're going to safely remove and unplug. I'm glad I figured out that TO thing. I was getting so frustrated. Okay, so here we're going to do ground to here, D13. And then we're going to plug it in, but you know, I can never remember what the state of my I don't have a bootloader on here, I think. We have bootloaders for this, right? I don't even know. So this is the STM32F4 feather, which I don't do a whole lot with, so I'm gonna have to learn. So we're gonna move to STM. We're gonna go make board feather STM32F405 Express. Clean it for good measure and build it. And then I'm not sure exactly how I want to load it. Oh, look at that. Oh, you know what? I'm also in the wrong. Well, that PR I just sent out has a bug in it. That's what this is. Let's fix that before we... Oh, you know what? And that means that I didn't... Well, no, I didn't rebuild the Feather S2 build, so it should be okay. I built it earlier from the Pulse thing, but I'm on the wrong branch. But I just found a bug in that I don't have a default value for that. So in status LEDs here, I think I'll do it here. I'll do if and def micropi hardware neopixel count. Define. So if it's not defined, we define it to be 1. Todd says, I was going to ask you about that. The CI would catch this too. And in fact, I'm going to go make sure that it's not. Now that I know what it happens, I'm just going to stop it. So if we go pull requests, yeah, we can see here that there's still a lot going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click into the details. And I'm going to say, this says cancel workflow. So I'm going to click that. Because I've already failed. I don't need to know exactly which ones to do because I know that there's this bug. Like if we look at this, like, oh, the itsy bitsy RP2040 failed, and it failed exactly for this same reason. So like all the things that have a status neopixel are going to fail. But not now, because I'm going to build it. And so now that I made the PR, when I don't make PRs, when I'm still working on it, I tend to amend that commit. But now that I've already made a PR, I'm going to push a new commit. So I'm going to say git status, git diff, git add, git commit, fix single neopixels dashboards. And then push. All right, so that works. Now I'm going to switch to the actual branch. And I'm going back in time because of Microlab. But maybe what I should do instead is I'll get it up to date so it's green, but now I'll rebase because why not? It should be easy, so I just do rebase I Adafruit main. And it says which commits do I want to rebase on top of. I've only got this one commit, so I just do that one. And now I hit git status, and now because I went forward in time and Microlab was changed, now I do it again, and I'm back to where I was, except I'm based on a newer version of Adafruit main. Okay, so now, since I moved around, I'm going to do this clean again and actually test STM. Well, now I got to figure out how to load it, but once I can figure out how to load it, then I'll do that. Okay, so there is a UF2. Let me pull up. So this is the other reason Learn Guides exist, right? Like Feather STM. What does it say here? Do we have UF2? No. Enabling bootloader mode. Ah, so I don't know if you can see it, but there's this white wire. That's my enable bootloader mode wire. So let me plug it in. Hit the button. Unplug. And STM is a pain to update. Well, it's well documented. DFU. And look, I've even got it in my history. I love fish. No DFU capable device. I think there's a way to list. I think there is also a... Anybody who tells me that DFU is a good way to update things, I'm just like, you haven't tried UF2, have you? We got it. That should be enough. But I think tinyUF2 does have support. Like if we go to tinyUF2, I think I might just be up behind the times. Like I was just here earlier for the... Oh no. I thought maybe it's a separate... Oh no, there's ST Disco Black Pill. Adafruit. No, these are just update ones. Bench supply needs an update. STM part, so DFU it is. Yeah. Yeah. I feel ya. Okay. So now we're unchecking or unplugging and then hitting reset. Now we're in safe mode, apparently. Let's do TO again, but let's do the awesome by ID TO. Adafruit S tab. Hard fault handler. That's no fun. I'm gonna unplug and plug it back in. Ah, and it's still in safe mode. Well, that's not good. I don't know why it's doing that. So my next step to debug this would be to solder the box header on here and be able to do J-Link. That's a problem, and that's something that we should fix before 7. But I don't feel like doing it now. And let's see, we're in safe mode. So let's just take a look at what's on the drive. Deep sleep. Actually, that's what we can do. Let's assume for a second that the deep sleep is the thing that's crashing. So let's say deep sleep crash. And then instead, oh, where did it go? My code.py disappeared. My test code.py. I should have backed that up. Alright. You know what? I have a second USB cable. This is the problem with having the source code on the device. It's like, I just leave it there. Feather code.py. Okay, so let's save this as CircuitPy code.py save, and then we'll eject to make sure that the system's written everything. Safely remove, and then we'll hit restart. Alright, so now it just gave me one red blink. Ah, so it said invalid pin, which I guess is okay. I don't know what pins I'm able to do pulse out on the... I guess we just try until one works. Let's mount it. open it. And like this. 12? Still line 7. There we go. D10 works. Hey, Johnny. Oh, there's a different bug. All timers for this pin are in use. Deinit is not deinitting. Okay, well, let's see. Let me move the thing here to 10. Let's just see if the first set of stuff is working. Capture again. Ctrl-D. All right, so we got the first set here, and it looks pretty good. 38. There's this gap. This gap should be 1. I think it's a little low. Or no, that's about right. 1.0168. The carrier frequency is right. The problem is that the deinits didn't work. So this is probably not related to my change. It could be. Question about dev serial by ID. What if there are 2 identical boards from Adafruit Connect? How can you tell which one is which? Good question. Not sure. I assume there's some number in the end that would uniqueify it. Disco tool there, by the way. Neradoc, you've done so much awesome tooling and I don't use it. I'm like back in the Stone Age in terms of CircuitPython tooling. Alright, let's figure this out. We got 8 minutes until we're at our 4 o'clock mark. Disco tool is a bomb. Okay, how do I use Disco tool? Do I just pip install it? Disco tool for microcontrollers. Okay. And then I run it, and it does no PWMOut. I assume that's either PWMOut. Okay. You've got a dependency problem. But that's okay. Oh, look at that. Neat. Thanks, Patrick. He was in my cut buffer already. See, I accept PRs for the Linux and Windows version. Alright, so it's printing out. Oh, neat, and it's telling me REPL versus not. So, oh, here's a perfect example. I have 2 different NRF52840 expresses plugged in, because one is this sensor for I like the particle sensors or something. It doesn't seem to be working very well anyway. But yeah, that's neat. It tells you what ACM it's on. So that would give you more information. So kudos to Neradoc for that. Okay, so let's see if in the next 6 minutes we can't figure out why this is not working. So let's dig into STM, common HAL, and it's line 21. All timers for this pin are in use, but I suspect that error is coming from PWM construct. No match found. So it must be this PWMOut all timers on pin in use response, which would make sense. So that is if the channel is taken or the taken internally. So taken happens if reserved timer channel. So this is doing a pin mask over the timer index. Or STM peripherals timer is reserved. So I could put prints here. Oh, dfu-util has commands to connect to a serial by board name, drive name, serial number. Although you need to add an environment variable to use TO instead of screen. So what I really want to know is what is it doing in deinit? Deinit says self timer equals null. Deinit says if I'm already deinited, then I'm done. If I reserve timer index -1 equals 0 if it's variable frequency. Right, so that's all to itself. Otherwise, we bit mask it with the channel index and stop it. That seems right. And then if there are no active channels, so this time index -1 seems a little weird. But this looks correct. Let's take a look at pulse out. dfu-util circup. Ah. So here, pulse out construct, STM peripherals find timer, timer reserve, deinit ref count, free. And ref count is here. So this all looks correct to me. So either I have to reason through this or I can just say, I'll do this later. I'll pick this up on Monday. My brain is not in the state to look at this. Plus the window is kind of small. Any final questions that folks have? Circup and dfu-util are definitely things people should look into. DCD says, what notes would you write to yourself to remember this on Monday? So the question is how would I remember that I'm going to do this? I think I probably wouldn't. I think I'm not a great... Well, I'm not like deep in the weeds of anything. One thing I should do is I should save this code.py. Since I've had to pull it off a couple times now. So I'm just going to save as... And then I have this random backups folder that I use. So I'm just going to do 2021-07-13 pulse out test. And then I'm just going to save it there. I'm trying to get better at doing reminders and stuff. But really, the reality is that I'm not going to get to this until Tuesday. Mondays are usually just catch up. I might be able to get to this on Monday because I'm not running Monday's meeting. But yeah, what I would probably end up doing is just being like, all right, what do I have to finish? Like, I do think about that for the meeting when we give status updates. So that kind of like gets my brain going. And then it's not like I'm like deep into context really. Like I haven't gotten there yet with this. I'm like about to embark on it when I'm figuring out like why it's saying it's busy. But yeah, generally I'm like kind of bad about that. Let's switch here. Yeah, so I'm not great about remembering stuff, but I know that I've got that list of issues that I'm working on through, and I know that the pulseout thing is the thing that I need to. That's the thing that I'm going to pick up, and then I'll probably quickly remember that I was like, oh, you know what, I have as well, and maybe I closed it. Hopefully I didn't close it. I do use tabs for state, which I think. Oh no. So I have. This must have reloaded, unfortunately. I had a list of like all the things that I've tested on. I was gonna say like tested this on these things. I lost it. Must have like restarted my browser and had like some form field. But you know, it's not the end of the world. I can, anything I've written once I can write again, and it'll probably be faster to write the second time. It was interesting, you've probably seen me like want to complete things before the weekend, but I had a coworker that I would always, when at Google, who was, he said, I always leave in the middle of something. He always left in the middle of something so that, one, he would like, his brain would be active about it, but then like he'd get in on Monday and he'd want to complete it. So like that's one trick he did so that he would always get to like, he would always kind of like pick up on Monday pretty quickly. But my Mondays tend to be 2 hours of meetings. So we have an internal meeting and then the CircuitPython weekly. And then if I'm doing that meeting, there's like post-meeting stuff like setting up the newsletter and getting the video online and stuff. And then I get through all my email and stuff. And usually by then I'm like, I've only got an hour or two kind of left. So Tuesdays are really my like starting to really code day of the week. But it varies. I had more meetings this week. I'm going to have some more meetings next week. I have been doing some broadband stuff that's like totally not work related, but I have a broadband meeting during the day. So Patrick, I've got broadband ideas since you live in the same city as me. I've got broadband ideas that maybe I could run by you, but yeah. Anyway, we made some progress on the neopixel status stuff, which is good. We covered the other 7.0 fixes that I had done previously, and we still have these last few to do, which is fine. We'll get there. My goal was to have it, I think I did say end of this week, but it's not going to happen. This Ctrl-C not interrupting any deep sleep alarms is something as well. So yeah, Bruce says, I may be in Seattle to visit once the border opens both ways. Let me know. I'd be happy to meet up. And that goes for anybody. If you're in Seattle and want to meet at a public place and have a drink of some sort, I'm happy to meet up with folks. Preferably outside, given that COVID is still a thing, but I am vaccinated. So it's not too bad. I'm just avoiding a lot of indoors with a lot of people still. Maybe going skiing near you next winter. I don't think you're skiing as good as me as us in Whistler. But. All right, now I'm just rambling. I could ramble about broadband, but I'm not going to do that. So, thank you again. This has been another Deep Dive with Scott. They are on Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific here on the Adafruit streams. Please support me indirectly by going to Adafruit.com, purchasing some hardware there. The Circuit Playground Bluefruits are in stock, it looks like. So if you don't have an NRF52840 board, I'd say pick one of those up. That would be cool. CircuitPython is beginner-friendly Python for stuff, so hopefully you saw a bit of that with what we're doing. Next week should be on Friday at 2 p.m. as well. If you want to get notified, sometimes I do change my mind on that. We do have a deep divers role on Discord that just ping me and I'll add you. And if I do switch it ever after I've said something else, I'll ping that group and let you know that my plans have changed. But otherwise, it should be normal next week. Good morning, Gary. I'm just wrapping up. Thank you for hopping in. And the cat is kind of out of view of the camera, so I think we'll just call it. And oh yeah, and Patrick points out that people should star the disco tool. So let me just do that as a wrap up here. So we'll switch to the link, and I'll paste it in the YouTube chat as well. So let's cool tool from Neradoc. Thank you, Neradoc, and we'll get that started up. And with that, we'll call it. Thank you all, and have a great weekend and week, and we'll see you on the Discords, which I forgot to say you can join by going to the URL adafru.it/discord. Have a great one, everyone.